The Board of Cosmetology meeting is convening at 10:06 a.m. on February the 6th, 2025. This meeting is being held in person and through MS Teams video conference and is being recorded. The recording will be posted to the internet for public viewing. I will now call roll. Tracy Paramo here. Harold Fox. Chelsea Westcott. I see Chelsea's name. Can I come back to her in just a bit?
Yes.
Jamie Farron. Beatrice Van.
Here.
Alicia Reed.
Here.
Sarah Schilling.
Here.
Chelsea Westcott.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Sorry, my speaker's being weird.
No worries. Thank you. Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Board members are asked not use the chat feature during meetings. Health Licensing Office, pardon me, asks that that individuals attending through MS Teams keep their phones muted and cameras off during the entire meeting or until they are given an opportunity to comment during public and interested parties feedback period, if indicated on the agenda. Public comment is limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this board has statutory authority to regulate. Public members wishing to speak, please sign in on the roster sheet available in the room or email Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov and provide your first and last name. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. Is that it?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Of course.
All right. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Would someone like to approve the agenda?
This is Chelsea Westcott. I approve the agenda. I move to approve the agenda.
I, Beatrice Van, second the approval.
Great. I'll call roll. Tracy Paramo, yes. Harold Falk, Chelsea Westcott.
Yes.
Jamie Farron is not here. Beatrice Van.
Yes.
Alicia Reed.
Yes.
Sarah Schilling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda is determine additional requirements to retake examination for applicant 156956. And y'all would have received it this morning. Derek, were you going to handle this or you want me to do it?
So I can talk about it.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Derek Foltz. I'm the current qualification analyst at the Health Licensing Office. So we have one candidate that we're looking at today. It's an individual who managed to squeak through and test 11 times for barbering instead of the 10. But we just need advice on what the next step should be for this individual. If you would like, I can pull up the issue statement that kind of outlines when he's taken the exams and the scores that he's gotten, but I think that might have been sent to you this morning.
It was.
Okay.
I had some questions about this is Tracy Paramo, if there were at any moment, did he receive any other hours or tutor sessions, anything like that?
Not that we're aware of. So he did a study review. Looks like it was back in September of 23, but that looks like the only additional training or education that he's received.
Got it.
Chair, this is Bob.
Yes, Bob?
I was just going to point out that right after the study review, looks like he had one of his highest scores of a 73.
Got it. Who
This
else
is
was
This is
Thank you.
Beatrice. I was looking at it and it looks like when he took it on the 10th time, he was really close. But then for some reason, the next day he went in, maybe, I don't know if it's nerves, and that's without any study review. I felt it looks like he did fairly okay. So I don't know. I'm like thinking that he should maybe go back to his school and get more, like potentially get some additional quizzes from his potential school and study because he was really close the 10th time.
Tina?
He is reciprocity.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
I
he's
see
coming
that
from
now. I'm sorry. I missed that on the paper.
yeah, he's coming from Washington, and the other caveat is that his Washington license is set to expire on February 14th of this year. So if he doesn't pass, then he'd have to go back and renew that license.
Do we know what his, this is Tracy Promo. Do we know what his original licensure date was?
He was issued a license in Washington on February 14th of 2023. It looks like about a month after he was issued a Washington license, he came to our office to test.
Got it. This is Tracy. I'm not opposed to having another tutoring session potentially. But I don't know what we, with a reciprocity case, if we can suggest or, say that they have to go back to school. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the suggested next step is.
Is he passing Oregon law and just not passing the actual barber one, or is it both that he's not passing?
So he did pass the laws and rules. It looks like he passed that back in May of 2023, and he actually did pretty well. He got an 88 on that one.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Derek Keenan has her hand up.
Tina, did you still have something to say?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you're right as far as having a study review, because if he doesn't pass by his 2 years of passing that laws and rules, he'll have to take laws and rules all over again.
This is Tracy. That would be my suggestion, is to do another study review for this gentleman. Hopefully he can get the taken care of before the 14th. If not, then the next step would be him going back to Washington and renewing his license there. Alicia?
Is there a way to get a study review, I guess, from a school he didn't graduate from here?
This is Tina. He'll get the study review in our office.
Ah, thank you. Okay.
Okay, if that's the direction we want to take, then we can reach out to him today and try to get that set up as soon as possible, so he's got a little more time.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Next item, Chair, if you're ready to move on.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, it's the director's report, and I'll cover the board membership standings as we have them reported today. Tracy, your second full term expires October of 16 to 2027, and you cannot reappoint. Sarah Schilling is in a first term, which expires April 9, 28, and Sarah can reappoint. Chelsea Westcott is in a first term. It expires June 26 of 26, can reappoint. Beatrice Van is in a first term. It expires January 25 of 2028 and can reappoint. Alicia Reed is in a first term. It expires August 29 of 2026 and can reappoint. Jamie Farron is in a first term. It expires 11/9 of 26, can reappoint. And Harold Folks is in a second term and it expires April 24 of 2027, and he cannot reappoint. I just wanted to remind everybody that there are some requirements once per term to do an overview of boards and commissions training. And annually, the information security training and foundations, as well as preventing discrimination and harassment. Those two are required to be done annually. There's a link in the materials that you were sent that should take you right to, I think you guys go to Workday. And
Yes.
Okay. And then there's also an overview of Oregon ethics, which is optional. You may have noticed, Chair, that in your scripts, they've changed a little bit, and that is due to the Ethics Commission new rule. And in short, that just basically says that, and I think you all received it in email previously. The chair did, okay. And that basically says that the chair, the body, any board member can be held accountable for any violations. It also gives the board and HLO, actually, there's a requirement that when there's public comment, that the comment is related to board business at hand or topics that are being discussed. And that is with public comment. Did I miss anything that board messed up?
Just to go, the Ethics Commission is watching the laws of public meetings law very closely, and they've already been doling out compliance, not fines, but education in at least 3 circumstances that we know, but it's all available on the website. And then there's a grievance process as well, where so how it used to work, if somebody had a complaint about public meetings law, it went to Government Ethics Commission, and they only had this certain amount of authority. Now it goes, so if there's somebody had a complaint about this meeting, they have 30 days to make a complaint to HLO and the board, and then we would respond in a certain amount of days. And then if they can't get resolution in that process, then they go to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. Then the other part is if everybody can be held liable for breaking the public meetings law, all the board members. So even if it's just one of you, all of you can be held accountable for it. There you go. That's it.
Thank you.
We're still learning it ourselves. Okay, next would be the licensing fiscal statistics report. And if you're following along, that is on slide 15. So in fiscal year 2025 in Q3, we've issued 5 harbors. Fair design, we've only got up to Q3 and we've issued 16. Technology, also Q3, we've issued 9 licenses. Natural hair care, Q2 of 2025, we issued 22. And estheticians for Q3 of 2025, we've issued 20. Independent contractors in Q3 of 2025, we've issued 24. Freelance authorizations, Q3, we've issued 9. Cosmetology facility licenses, we've issued 15 in Q3 of 2025. Licenses renewed. We're about par for paper versus online. And that is for barber licenses being renewed. And we've had 18 in Q3 of 2024. Hair design does a little bit better with online renewals, and Q3 we've had 77 paper, 76 online. Nail technology, a lot of them are done by paper. And in Q3, 52 were online, 30 were by paper. Natural hair care, looks like it about breaks even with Q2, we've had 5 by paper and 2 do it renew online. Estheticians, pretty well with online renewals. And in Q3 of 2025, 64 were online with 32 by paper. Independent contractors, also very well online with 52 in Q3 online and 41 by paper. And freelance authorization, also about break even. And Q3, there was 2 that renewed online. Facility, paper versus online, also about par. Actually, online is a little higher and currently 38 online, 37 by paper. On slide 31, we jump into licensing trends. Currently, in Q3 of 2025, we're about 2,668 on average for barbers. Hair design, we have an average of about 18,871 in Q3. Nail technology, 12,639 average. And natural hair care, 222 on average for Q3 of 2025 also. Estheticians, 15,440 Q3. And independent contractors, 7,658 on average in Q3. Freelance authorization has increased quite a bit to 659 on average for Q3 of 2025. And the cosmetology facility on average for Q3 is 5,035. It's been a little bit of a decline, but it's moved upward in the positive territory. And I would imagine since we're in Q3, the numbers that are low will turn and move northward into the positive territory as we move on to the year. Licenses by age and gender, and the facilities are not included. Those identified by female are the highest by far. I'm on slide 39. And male and other come up second and third. On slide 40, we have our testing trends. And I don't know if you wanted me to cover each of those, Chair, or if you all can see them and see where we're at with the pass fail rates for 2022, 23, and 24.
Yeah, I think we can take a look at those individually. You don't have to read those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't want you to feel punished by me reading it all. Okay.
I love the sound of your voice. It's fine.
Great, thank you. That's 1 out of how many thousand? Anyway, the statistics, beginning cash balance in fiscal year 2025, we are at $704,004. Excuse me, $704,000, 858 in the negative, and with the revenues of just over 2.1 million and expenditures just over 1.9 and operations of 195,000. We have an ending cash balance of 509,400. So we are moving in the right direction of digging out of that $1 million hole that we were in a few years ago.
Yeah. Good to know.
Any questions on the director's report? Anybody?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, thank you. Next is our new regulatory operations manager, Tramp Shuck.
Hello, everybody. This is Trampashek, regulatory manager. I'm here to talk about the regulatory report. So as you can see, we've still got 3 biennium on this report. We got open and closed case status on the left. I think most of the board members have seen this type of chart before, but the top section of that is the open cases, the bottom section is closed cases, and then the last line is the total of open and closed. So you can see we have 3 biennium on here. That first biennium, that oldest, was just a 2021 biennium. We had 557 cases come in, which is about double from what we normally get. The numbers that you see for the 2023 and the not quite over 2025 biennium, we got about 5 months left to go, something like that. You can see those numbers are a little more of what we would consider average, the 230, the 219. And you can see that for the 2023 biennium, there are 48 cases still open, and then for the 2025, the current biennium, 142 of the cases are still open. And just as a quick overview of this chart, open and closed seem like pretty straightforward terms, but open can mean a couple of different things. It can mean that it just was open and is in the process of being assigned. It could mean it's being currently investigated. It could mean it's done being investigated and has been handed over to me for review. It could mean it's waiting for some other administrative process before it can actually close. Closed cases generally mean that they've been investigated, they've looked at, they're closed. It can also, small group of those can also be closed, but we're still in the process of some other administrative process. So like when we send the notice out, if there's a notice in a case, that is where we have to mark it somewhere. That's where it's closed, and it could go through several months of processing before we're not touching it anymore, for example. So that's what you're seeing here. The little area in the middle is complaints by type. You can see the 2021 biennium, 2023 biennium, 2025 biennium, and they're broken down by the different types of complaints. And you can see where our big bump was in the 2021 biennium. That the complaints around COVID restrictions was a big bump for that time frame. So, but they still had to all be looked at. So it was quite a process at that time to go through those. So, and then you can see critical complaints regarding licensing, laser services, licensing concerns, safety and sanitation. You can see that licensing concerns are probably one of our biggest complaints. That can either be somebody, hey, this person's working without an independent contractor, or this person's working in inactive, or it could just be completely unlicensed. And we go through trends of what that unlicensed service is. But currently you can see it's pushing half of our complaints are unlicensed complaints. So, and then another large group is safety and sanitation as well. So, and then over to the right, you see complainants by type, anonymous. We do actually get a fair amount. About 25% of the cases that we get for this board are anonymous. Then 140 are from clients, and then 605 are from other. Other could just be we don't know. They could just be somebody complaining about a place or something, and we just don't know if they're an actual client or if they're just somebody reporting it. So that could also be another practitioner or anything else. So, so that's the regulatory report. These numbers are relatively current. They're from about a month ago. You can see the date this report was ran. They're slightly different now, but not significantly so. There's a few that have been closed out of that 21 biennium, and a few new ones that we've gotten. So, but it gives you a good picture of what's going on. So, did anybody have any questions about regulatory or regulatory processes or inspections or investigations or anything like that?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you, Travis.
All right.
Hello, everybody. This is Sammy at Node Health Licensing Office. going to give you your policy update. So, two bills, there's actually sister bills. They are the exact same language. Senate Bill 207 and House Bill 2380. I'm losing my mind here.
I think so.
What? 2380, yeah, yes. So basically, in a nutshell, what it does, it creates a provisional certificate allowing people to, in a field of practice, to get basically on-the-job training. I think in facilities, it doesn't say that, so that's a question that we have. And then whatever the board gets to decide the amount of hours that somebody could do that training, so and it has to be equal to the school hours. So if they did 500 hours at school, and you would be equal to 500 hours on the job training. So it can't be less. I guess that's how, it couldn't be half an hour if they did an hour. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So setting those restrictions, it would, requires that we have rules in place by January 1st. Which is, we
Quick.
can't start making rules until September. So there are several issues kind of wrapped up in this bill that are problematic that we've now made comments about. Have any questions about this? I do not know who asked for the bill. Like what constituency, I have no idea.
This is Beatrice. I know I kind of emailed you some questions and I kind of answered those questions myself as I read through it a few times. I guess my question is that when I kind of read through the provisions, I know Washington implemented something similar to this a couple years ago in their Board of Cosmetology. But one difference that I did notice is that in Washington, they required the facility owner to also get a certificate to be able to be a training center. So is that something that we could potentially, as we go through this journey, to further discuss of what that type of certification, because we want the facility to be, I guess, working in certain standards of safety and sanitation and practicing properly, I guess. Like, I don't really know what the right terms to say is, but I guess that's just like some things that kind of came to my mind of like, I didn't really see anything that led to a facility having to have also a provisional facility certificate. It was only a individual who would go through this process to be a trainee to get licensed under a trainer. If that makes sense.
Yes, I will look into what Washington has. Because I don't think I put in my analysis, my original one, that it doesn't really tell us that they can work in it. We're assuming it's facility, but it doesn't even say that. So that would go with that piece that I need to add in. So I will look into Washington and see if that is a possibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Tracy. Kind of to Beatrice's point, I believe, is like, making sure that the person who is training this individual has the criteria to help facilitate education, like considering what schools have to do and provide as far as certification, going through HEC, things like that, for our educators, having to have a 2-year minimum, things like that. So kind of ensuring that we can, that the people providing this education are qualified to do so.
Sorry,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just making a note.
This is Beatrice again, and from my understanding that this is just like the beginning parts of these bills, right? So nothing has been set in stone. It's just something to put on the radar as we move forward, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I can keep you guys up. I'm just gonna send an email where you can it'll have these attachments specifically, and I'll provide you where you can go to see the overview, how you can get emails directly about these specific bills. So I'll give you all that information so you can track it.
Thank you.
This is Tracy, and for any, board members, I would encourage you to look at the Washington, like when you go onto their site, you can actually read the regulations and how it's monitored. I think that'll give us a good place to kind of start asking questions and building out, what we believe is the most safe and best practice moving forward.
Okay. Okay. Now we're going to go into executive session.
Awesome. The Board of Cosmetology will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, ORS 192.3559A, and ORS 40.225 for the purpose of considering information exempt from public disclosure at 10:37 a.m. on February 6, 2025. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend the executive session. Audience members attending through MS Teams will now be moved into a separate breakout room, and audience members attending in person are asked to leave the room both for the duration of the executive session. Those authorized to attend the executive session, please continue to keep your phone muted and camera off. Are there any representatives of the news media on MS Teams?
I don't believe so.
Thank you. Recognizing there's no news media in attendance, the public will be moved into a separate breakout room for the duration of executive session. We'll return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions. It's estimated that the board will return to public session at 11:15 a.m. Please be aware that it is
This is Heather. We'll probably be out within about 15-20 minutes.
Thank you, Heather.
Sorry, Tracy.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. It's estimated that the board will return to public session at 11:50 a.m. Please be aware that it is possible that the board's executive session may last longer than 10:50 a.m. If the public has any questions about whether the board is still in executive session, then the public can contact Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov. We are now in executive session. Cosmetology will now exit executive session and reconvening open session at 10:58 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken in executive session. The public will be moved from the breakout room back into the meeting, and representatives of the media may once again report all board discussions and actions.
Jared, anybody want to have additional discussion?
Does anyone want to begin a discussion? Anyone have something to say? Anybody?
This is Alicia. I guess, is there a clear delineation between what might step into the realm of natural hair care in a school setting and what wouldn't? Like you mentioned, nope. I understand that shampooing can be a part of both worlds. And I'm wondering which world we're going to go with when something pops into it. Is it based on the intent of the final goal for that person, or or is it just, maybe more clarification on that.
This is Tracy. I believe that it is I believe that everything that is inside of that natural hair care licensure or certification exists in our like pivot point textbook right now. So they talk about braiding, they talk about shampooing. We have a chapter on wigs and hair additions, which would cover, sew-ins and things like that. I know that Natural Hair Care has the certification to use scissors on string, but not on hair. So there's like some delineations that make it so that the scope of practice for natural hair care is smaller, more restrictive, but that the hair design program encompasses, from what I believe, everything that's in that natural hair care certification inside of the larger hair design program.
And I suppose this is Alicia again. I would like to know what the switch will be then for requiring someone to already have a certificate with natural hair care when they are at a school setting. Just what will that actual, criteria be? You know what I'm saying? Like if someone in a school setting is going to learn all of that, then what would a person be doing there, with already having a natural hair care license, unless they're just building on their knowledge and going for
They're just building.
Okay.
Does anyone else, this is Tracy, does anyone else have comments or questions?
I don't know if this is like in relationship to education, the distinction between hair design and natural hair care, but like kind of what Alicia, mentioned prior of like the head spas and things like that. I think that there's maybe at some point in this meeting, we can discuss a little bit more of like, how do we regulate that, right? It goes back to like, what does that encompass? Like, I know that natural hair care, we are able to wash, shampoo, dry, right? Or style using hot tools. But then I think there's a little bit of a muddy where people are treating the head, like shampooing the head, but they may be doing other treatments without other practices. And that's kind of going back to kind of that provisional certificate. There's just a lot of muckiness since the booming of these head spas arises, which I don't know. I think that there's a little bit more in discussion of that, which I know I mentioned to Sammy like about last year when they started coming up. That was my concern of that not having all the licensures that you need to encompass what you're actually doing in that service.
Sammy?
And how do we regulate that?
Sorry, Beatrice. Yeah. Sammy?
So it's my understanding that the head spa is kind of twofold. Is it in the natural hair care scope of practice, and is it in the aesthetic scope of practice? Is that accurate? I've had both questions. I just want to make sure that that is the way the board sees it as well.
This is Beatrice.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Beatrice.
Tracy.
This is Tracy. I see it as, yes, it could be considered somewhat in the aesthetic scope of practice, depending where on the head, face, shoulders they are manipulating. And it also falls under the hair design licensure. Same thing. It's addressing hair. There's a trichology aspect, manipulations of the scalp, things like that aren't necessarily inside of the licensure or the scope of practice for the natural hair care.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, it's unclear if head spas are in aesthetic scope or natural hair care scope. Does that make sense? So it is a question, if you want that question asked, you need to ask it.
So this is Beatrice. This is kind of my understanding, like being an esthetician, and scalp health has become a really big thing in the last couple years. Has been kind of booming with, more visibility on menopause and hormones, people losing hair. So, so I think myself as an esthetician, we treat the scalp. We're not treating the hair. So that's like for me, an aesthetic standpoint is that if you are exfoliating the scalp, like putting exfoliation treatments on the scalp, and scalp is skin. We're not focusing on the hair, the trichology of the hair, like we're focusing on the scalp health. And so to us, scalp is skin. And so we are treating the skin as we also, if there are more manipulations of including like this, the face, the neck massage, as Tracy had mentioned, that goes into the realm of esthetician. I think that when we talk about if an esthetician, if someone who is in aesthetics, who is blow drying hair, they would have to, in addition to their esthetician's license, I would assume that they would also have a natural hair care license to wash the products that they're putting in their hair and then drying the hair. That's but then if they're going deeper into hair anatomy, then that falls into potentially what Tracy's mentioning, hair design, right, Tracy?
Yes. Sammy, did you have something else?
Yeah, I mean, just based on, like, if you were to read the definition of barbering, it's when you're looking at a statute, and if it's in the same kind of series, it says it in barbering, it means it's definitely barbering, we know that. But if it isn't in aesthetics, did the legislature mean that on purpose? We usually assume that. So this is probably a legal question that would need to be looked at further if you wanted an actual, like, real answer. Because I really don't know I don't know how it would fit in aesthetics. So we have to ask a legal question. That's all I'm saying.
Beatrice?
I would like to add, like, because in our aesthetics rules, it does say that we, as estheticians, we can beautify and manipulate the skin. And so that's kind of where the scalp is part of the skin. Like, we're not massaging the scalp, we're manipulating the scalp, and we're beautifying the skin of the scalp.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I'm just saying, like, I know you're not disagreeing, I'm just wanting to kind of specify, kind of like when we're in relationship to our rules and regulations, that's kind of, and I think that's where, as estheticians, that's where we're reading through the lines. There's no gray there to us, because the scalp, we are manipulating, we're not massaging, we're manipulating, and we're treating that area for beautification.
This is Tracy. So I think what we're saying is that someone that is performing head spa services would require more licensure than just natural hair care. It would need to be in addition to barbering, hair design, and or aesthetics.
If they are performing, if they have services on their menu that they're implementing facials and gua sha and like hydrogel treatments that they're treating specifically in our practices.
Right.
I mean, but barbers can do facials. So, I mean, there's definitely some crossover, but if somebody calls me and says, is this in the scope? I tell them, I don't know.
Right.
So.
Well, because I think
This is Chelsea
when we're talking about barbering, where like I think when I brought this up, I'm more like leaning towards natural hair care. Most people, I think, as Bob was mentioning of like our licensure, we had such a boom in natural hair care licensing with our board, and so that's where I think there's a lot of facilities opening and they're just doing natural hair care but performing other scopes of practice with only a natural hair care certificate.
Chelsea, did you have something?
Yeah, I think that the biggest piece here is the difference between a barber in an SD is not, oh man, how do I word this? With doing a head spa situation, yes, you're treating the skin, you're working with the skin, so an SD can definitely do that. But like Beatrice said, is you would have to have at least a natural hair care license to be able to then shampoo any of that treatment out and off of the head and out of the hair, because it will get into the hair, and then to be able to perform a blow dry service afterwards.
Correct.
Yeah.
And not send them out wet. And so I think that's where you would have to have, I don't think you could be just an esthetician and
Right.
do a head spa situation.
Yep.
A barber
Agreed.
does have all of that. So a
Correct.
barber would be able to blow dry and complete the actual service and do all of those pieces with them. Natural hair care,
Putting on the
they're,
phone, background.
what was that? Oh, there are people kind of nearby talking.
Oh, okay.
From where my office is, there's like, you can kind of hear the background noise, sorry. But I think that the natural hair care license doesn't necessarily include that manipulation of the scalp, right? It is only truly to style the hair and manipulate the hair.
Yep.
So a barber, out of the 3 licenses, a barber would be the only one that could actually do that
With one license. Correct.
with one license.
Right.
So I guess, Sammy, to your question, if somebody were to ask you as an esthetician if they could perform that service, I would say no, not as a singular esthetician
I would
license.
say I don't, I would just say I don't know.
I think I have.
I think that because, and like, this is Beatrice again, like, I think that this kind of goes back to like very similar questionable things from the last few years of like from brow laminations to tinting. Can we potentially do an FAQ in relationship to this licensure? Because there's so much of it happening and it's going to continue to boom. And so I just kind of feel like to be able to have an answer from the board and HLO is that we consider putting an FAQ to differentiate the scope, as Chelsea, I think, did a really good job clearing what each scope does and what you would need to do what you want to do within your facility. So I would suggest that maybe we can look into an FAQ like we've done in the past for other services.
Right. Even
was
this
a question.
even going back to like a flow chart, like we talked about in the, when we were just distinction between the advanced aesthetics and aesthetics, like, does it do this? Yes or no? Does it do this? Yes or no? Does it address this? Yes or no? Same sort of concept, something to go back to your point.
Because I don't think an I don't know is kind of.
We don't provide legal advice and it's an interpretation of law. So there's oftentimes I
Got
don't
it.
have the answer, so I don't answer. I just say, here's the statute, here's what it says. Because I'm not a lawyer, and it would be illegal for me to be answering legal questions, so. Sometimes I have the answers in this situation. I do.
Any other feedback or comments? Okay, Sammy, is there an action that we need to take on this?
No, I don't think so, no. I mean, you can take, up to you guys, how you want to proceed. The agenda says discussion and feedback, so.
Right.
You want me to look into an FAQ? I can do that.
This is Tracy. So I believe that this kind of got on the agenda because of some of the questions that a public member asked at our last meeting, kind of opened up this dialogue. And, I just want to make sure that, what some of the questions that public member had laid out was about the training, the module, and wanting more of that. And I think that when we look at this certification being an ease of process for someone so that they can perform these services without entering into an actual school program, that things should stay kind of where they are. And if we need to delineate scope of practice more, that's an additional conversation.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. That is additional, which I can work with Heather on an FAQ, but I do not know when that would be completed. So
Got it.
I'll put it on the list.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Comment.
Do we want to move into public and interested parties feedback?
I think so.
Great. So at this time, the Board of Cosmetology will hear public and interested parties feedback. Public comment is limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this board has statutory authority to regulate. Comments will be limited to, Sammy, do you have a suggestion for that? 3 minutes, 2 minutes?
Yeah, three's good.
Great. Limited to 3 minutes and will not be allowed if they are disruptive to the board's conduct of its business. If you're called to comment, HLO staff will request the public member to unmute themselves. The chairperson and HLO reserve the right to end a person's comment early and have HLO staff mute the public member if the comment does not pertain to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this board has statutory authority to regulate. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? If so, please raise your hand or use MS Teams raise hand feature and wait to be acknowledged.
We did get a written public comment from Chris Huffstetter, which I just sent because we just got it. And it's regarding House Bill 2380 and 207, and it's addressing concerns about the two bills. And I have not thoroughly read it. I don't know if Chris is on to give us an overview. I don't think so.
Doesn't look like it.
He says it will have an impact on local communities in our state. There's already regulation through HEC, which requires cosmetology schools to only hire instructors who have a minimum 2 years experience, background checks. Not exact, is he just the board to know, or does he want to do something? I'm not completely clear. It's just letting you know.
It looks like he's trying to join the call right now, so hopefully maybe he can clarify.
Perfect. Chris, welcome.
What's up, Bruce?
We were just looking at your public comment.
Oh, nice. Did you get a read through, or would you like me to say something?
Yeah, give us an overview, because I just sent it like 20 minutes ago.
Well, realistically, the way that I read the two bills, obviously they're identical in content, but to both sides of the Senate and House, what they're looking at doing is creating, for lack of a better term, an apprenticeship or a provisional certificate for somebody to provide all of the services under a field of practice, under the direction of a licensed professional. And one of, I have a few concerns, but one of the largest ones that I think could be in front of the Board of Cosmetology and Health Licensing comes from the perspective around public safety, public health, and the responsibilities of the board. And that really comes down to the fact that There's no written components of these bills that speaks to safety sanitation, that speaks to, it talks about having the full length be similar to the length of time that a student would be in a program in a school. However, it does not speak to the exact content that should be covered. And when you bring a, whether unpaid or paid provisional service provider under you, you're looking at what regulations require me to teach them safety and sanitation. What regulations require me to teach them Oregon laws and rules? And until those components are written into this, I would like the board to speak out against it. And I'd like health licensing office to as well. Those clarities must be written into the law, because as you put them into just regulation or you put them based on a board vote, we then get into a situation where if somebody is on the board that doesn't understand the depths of the industry specifically, they may not know what they're actually voting for and creating regulation for. And when you get into rules advisory committees and those components of this, you're going to see a lot of division, because there's a lot of misunderstanding of what the pay structure will be like. There's a lot of misunderstanding around, can the trainer charge a trainee to be part of the program? And those components have to be dialed in. And when we talk about public health and safety, those things are written into curriculum as required by the Higher Education Coordinating Commission for all schools in the state of Oregon. And this creates a loophole for, and I'll be blatantly honest, as a school, if I am seeing struggles of people passing their test, thus hurting my school, I could turn into a service provider apprenticeship shop where now I am churning people as fast as possible. And I'm not concerned because I'm no longer regulated by the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. So I don't have to try to achieve the safety sanitation requirements. I don't have to try to make sure that a student can pass a test, because I'm not going to be held responsible for whether or not they pass that exam, as the way the law is currently written. And so I think you're going to see a spike in testing failures. I think you're going to see a spike in the number of testing. Now, if this is, if I'm wrong and they have clarified some of these things, and I only read the law or the bills when they first came out. So as things move and progress, I'm sure there's changes, and I'm happy to listen to those things. But at this point, the neglect of the safety of the public here is of danger and concern.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Hi, this is Bob. I want to address something that was just mentioned, and it's just for clarity for gentleman who's speaking and for the board. So HLO is neutral when it comes to bills. We do an analysis and kind of provided information to legislators, what works, what doesn't work, under our program. But other than that, we're neutral. The board members can they can go to the legislature and they just have to move their board hat and say that they're there as individuals. So you can write testimony if you wish about the bill. But those other avenues.
I've been sending them in, Bob. I'm with you.
Okay.
I want them to have the clarity. If we're going to go this path, which in rural communities could be a big win, they need to do it with, eyes wide open. That's really my concern here.
Yeah. So, and HLO's here to assist you in any capacity that we can. But for us to go in front of the legislature or provide anything other than a neutral base, then we can't do it. But let us know if we can help you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Doesn't look like it. It says on the agenda to go to executive session again. Are we ready to do that? So the Board of Cosmetology will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F and ORS 676.590 for the purpose of considering information exempt from public disclosure at 11:27 a.m. on February 6, 2025. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend the executive session. Audience members attending through MS Teams will now be moved into a separate breakout room, and audience members attending in person are asked to leave the room, both for the duration of executive session. Those authorized to attend the executive session, please continue to keep your phone muted and camera off.
This call is no longer being recorded.
Are there any representatives of the news media on MS Teams? Recognizing there are no news media in attendance, the public will be moved into a separate breakout room for the duration
This
of
call will be recorded.
executive session. We will now return to open session we will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions. It's estimated that the board will return to public session at 12:00 p.m. Please be aware that it is possible that the board's executive session may last longer than 12:00 p.m. If the public has any questions about whether the board is still in executive session, then the public can contact Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov. We are now in executive session. The Board of Cosmetology will now exit executive session and reconvening open session at 12:27 p.m. No final decisions were made and no votes were taken in executive session. The public will be moved from the breakout room back into the meeting, and representatives of the media may once again report all board discussions and actions.
All right. So in case number 278611, the board moves to assess a civil penalty in the amount of $2,500 and assess the costs of any disciplinary proceedings.
This is Chelsea Westcott, so moved.
And can I get a second, please?
This is
Alicia
Beatrice
Reed.
Van. Oh, go ahead, Alicia.
Oh, that's okay. This is Alicia Reed. I second.
Awesome. I'll take roll. Tracy Paramo, yay. Harold Falks. Chelsea Westcott.
Yes.
Jamie Farron. Beatrice Van.
Yes.
Alicia Reed.
Yes.
Sarah Schilling. Okay. So moved. Is that, we had quorum for that. We're good, right? Sammy?
So,
That was 4 of us.
yep, all good.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So in case number 2411036, the board moves to assess a civil penalty in the amount of $300 and assess the cost of any disciplinary proceedings.
This is Chelsea Westcott, so moved.
This is
Can I get-
Beatrice Van. I second the move.
Thank you. I'll take roll. Tracy Promo, yay. Chelsea Westcott,
Yay.
Beatrice Van,
Yay.
Alicia Reed.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, other board business.
Nothing else?
Ready?
Nothing else?
Doesn't look like it.
Awesome. Would we like to adjourn?
Think so.
Perfect. The Board of Cosmetology meeting is adjourned at 12:30 p.m.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate
Bye.
you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.